Hey, how's it going? I figured I would go ahead and get started here, just because there's some stuff going on. There are some a decent amount of warnings coming through in Israel and some attacks in Beirut, so I figured I'd just go ahead and get going. I'll do my quick intro just for the algorithm. Welcome to the live stream. I'll be covering updates on the war with Iran that has spread to other countries, and we'll also do live monitoring of any situations that arise. Hit the like on the way in, it helps the algorithm. And the best way to support creators like me is down in the description. I have some links. There are many ways you can support. And definitely, we honor and we thank those that serve in the military. We have had some. The loud static is, I'll mute that. But that's the radio. That is the military radio. Is this guy here. Okay. Maybe I'll do it one more time just because that was loud. Alright, I'll do the intro one more time. I don't know how loud it was, but welcome to the live stream. I'll be covering updates on the war with Iran that has spread to other countries, covering the last 24 hours. Hit that like on the way in. It helps the algorithm, and it's the best way to support creators like me. If you want to support in other ways, you can always become a channel member, pick up some merch, buy affiliate products on my Amazon storefront, or donate. And we appreciate everyone being here. And also, we honor and we thank those that serve in the military. Yeah, so everyone's saying that was really loud. I'm not sure. It's the radio. It's just like an intermediary one. I'm getting a totally different setup, a different shortwave setup for listening to the launch codes and nuclear codes and all that stuff. It should be here Saturday, maybe Sunday. Yeah, hit that like. It's the only thing that pushes this out. There's obviously there's talk about Kristi Noem, but a lot of people are saying she got reassigned. So I'm trying to verify if that's what's going on. Yeah, it says Kristi Noem was removed as Secretary of Homeland Security following mounting bipartisan criticism at a tense congressional hearing. One news outlets report she was fired by President Trump. He also announced her reassignment to a new role as Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, whatever that is. Her replacement is Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. So she was fired, but she was also reassigned. I don't know if this new position is a step down or if it's a step up or parallel. I'm not sure. But definitely interesting. Seems to be one of the biggest stories right now. It's like, oh, she got fired. She's done with the government. Nope. She's just hanging out somewhere else now. And that's typically how it works when they have a lot of pull for whatever reason. They just play chess, move them to different places. All right. So I assume the static is fixed. Can you give me a thumbs up or a 5x5 or something in chat if you hear no static? Then we can get started. Yeah, let's look at the replacement really quick. I don't know anything about this person, but I heard he's already been shaking things up. The replacement. All right, Markwayne Mullin. Let's look up some information on him. Markwayne Mullin, American politician and businessman. He served as the junior United States Senator from Oklahoma, member of the Republican Party, and member of the Cherokee Nation. He's the first Native American U.S. Senator since Ben Nighthouse Campbell. He's the second Cherokee citizen elected to the Senate since 1925. So that's his main background. I'm trying to see if there's anything, anything that's not good. Teamster confrontations, one beautiful bill. It looks like all the information about him, like his personal life, what he believes in, his stances on everything. transgender rights and abortion and all that. It's all on Wikipedia, assuming it's correct. But I would have to do a much deeper search to see if there's some kind of, some kind of dirt or something we need to be aware of. Pate O'Brien, that's very inappropriate, but that's funny. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the headlines, and then we'll get into the clips, and then we'll go to live monitoring. You just missed basically some attacks that happened in Israel. There was actually some missiles, so I haven't seen missiles get launched in a while. And then Beirut got hit pretty hard earlier, and we'll look at some of that footage. So last 24 hours, Iran launched new waves of missiles and drones targeting Israeli military positions and regional bases linked to U.S. forces. Air defense systems in Israel and Gulf states were activated, intercepting multiple incoming projectiles overnight. U.S. military assets in the region increased alert levels, including naval and air forces near the Persian Gulf. There have been some commercial issues. So there's been a tanker and a tugboat that got hit. Commercial shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz slowed as tanker operators paused routes due to security concerns. European governments issued emergency security meetings, with France discussing expansion of nuclear deterrence strategy, which we have talked about. So Macron really wants to get more nukes and stronger nukes, and maybe even more ways to deliver them. Oil prices surged globally amid fears the conflict could disrupt Middle East supply routes. I believe we're officially above $90 a barrel. Some people are predicted to get up to 100 or more. Cyber attacks linked to the conflict were reported against several government and infrastructure systems in the region. President Trump fired Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and we know that triggered a big shakeup. We know she was replaced, but we've also just learned that she's been reassigned. So she's not gone from the government. She's on this new task force. And it was Senator Mark Wayne Mullen as the nominee to replace her. Global leaders called for de-escalation, while military deployments across the region continue to increase. We're also seeing the other BRICS nations, like China and Russia, starting to show official support, meaning supplies, finances, and other things to assist Iran. And I think we knew that was coming. We didn't know when, but it's here now. So let's go ahead and jump over to our clips and X for the day. And I know a lot of you guys said you really appreciate this because you don't have X. So I hope this is as, kind of a view into what's on there. Again, always check your sources. Make sure that you are vetting whatever information you get. So Moon Goddess, you're saying that Mullen is supposed to be worse than Noem. That's what you've heard? I've never heard of him either. This is my very first time ever seeing him. So we shall see. But I've never heard of this new task force or whatever she's on either. So I'm gonna have to dig into that and see what that's all about. All right, let's go ahead and get into. U.S. intelligence suggests that China may be preparing to assist Iran with financial support, spare parts, and missile components, though Beijing is acting cautiously due to concerns about energy supplies and stability in the Strait of Hormuz. And if you remember, during the 12-day war, there were some big cargo planes from China that were probably dropping things off, probably like missile defense systems and those type of things. So, they're keeping their end of the bargain. I don't know what Russia's doing. I don't know if Russia's actually backing them at this point. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke by phone with his Cuban counterpart in a call described as constructive. And remember that Trump is targeting Cuba either right now, which is what I'm understanding, or very soon. We have this fighter. This is the Israel fighter basically saying, they have free reign over Iran.
אנו טייסי ונווטי חיל האוויר הישראלי
doing selfies.
עושים כעת במבנה מעל שמי טהרן בדרך לתקיפת מטרות היסטוריות. אנחנו בעיצומה של מערכה שמטרתה להסיר איום קיומי על מדינתנו.
No air defense.
אנחנו נגיע לכל מקום, לכל אויב, עבור המדינה שלנו, הביטחון של המשפחות שלנו. ממשיכים להילחם.
So this is to show that they have air superiority over the area. So if this is legit, which it seems like it is, then this is them kind of just flexing a little bit, I guess you could say. Agreed. Prayers for anyone who has family in the war, and prayers for anyone who's serving. And if you guys can, put where you're watching from. And if any of you are serving, feel free to call yourself out here in the chat. Statement from Admiral Brad Cooper, CENTCOM commander. The Iranian terrorist regime has attacked 12 different countries and continues to deliberately target civilians through the Middle East. Last night, Iranian forces fired 7 attack drones at civilians, residential neighborhoods in Bahrain. This is unacceptable and will not go unanswered. We will continue working with regional partners to address this threat to innocent people across the region. So they feel as though they're targeting civilians unjustly. Watching from the North Pole. Is that real? Are you a bot or is that real? How many Americans? The only Americans they've admitted to is 6 that I've seen. We know it's probably more than that. Swamp Lover says Cuba. This is another commander and from Iran, and he's saying anywhere the U.S. and the Zionist regime carry out operations or military actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran, it will be targeted with full force. One thing that's interesting is they're roasting the U.S. They're roasting the president. They've said things like I won't say his name, but Big E, with the files. They'll say that they're the Big E regime attacking them and stuff like that. So they're just laughing. I mean, this whole thing is just entertaining to them. I'm watching from behind the ice wall. Oh, man. Yeah, I would love to do some stuff on Antarctica here soon, too. And this is CCTV footage of an attack on Iran's Kazan boys' school, resulting in a teenager that died. This is obviously, not a good thing. It's civilians, it's children. This is kind of similar to the girls' school attack. But that one obviously was horrific. Like 175 children, mostly, and a few adults died. But this is showing the moment when this hit. And you can see they're kind of using it, and probably rightfully so, as a campaign saying, look what's happening. Look what they're doing to us. Look what they're doing to our innocent children, right? So the problem with this, and I've talked about it multiple times, is that they keep putting these schools next to the military compounds and naval bases. Why? Obviously, if you're in a war, they're going to target these military areas. And if you put a school a few blocks away or right next door or in the same building, this is going to happen. There's going to be this kind of collateral damage. So it's terrible, but it is preventable. This is attacks. This was very recent, like last hour or two. And this was attacks in Beirut. These are the ones that I just missed right as I was coming in. I was actually going to go live during them, but I couldn't get everything spun up fast enough. Huge blasts. Shook the camera.
واضح في صف بنايات هل عم لك يعني في صف بنايات نزل 2 أو 3 بكل هالقوة وكمية التفجير والدمار اللي وقع ولكن طبعا أقل من
And there were multiple strikes like this. So I mean, these are bombers. These are major hits. Let's vote on this one if you want to watch it or not. This is a 10-year-old girl talking about her family. Well, we don't need to watch it. I'll just read it. So a 10-year-old Iranian girl in Manab, she recounts the strike that killed her 11-year-old brother and their teacher mother. Her father used to always come and pick up from school, and he was outside too. When he heard the sound, I guess the father, he went to save the mother. He went up and another blast happened, and then he was killed too. And then they were in school, and she said there was a sound like a strong wind was heard. All the teachers screamed and ran. I was scared too and followed my teacher into a classroom, and after that, I became unconscious. So she got hit by the blast wave or something. A big piece of rock had fallen on my back. When I regained consciousness, a man came to lift it, but he couldn't. Several people came and couldn't either. They lifted a corner of it a bit, and I came out myself. I miss them so much. I'm glad they're martyred, and I want to follow in their footsteps. So the children of these people are probably going to end up growing up being much more extreme than their parents. And this is horrible. This is the kind of stuff we do not want to see from war. And this is a lot of stuff that no one talks about in the war. But I just wanted to share this story because I don't want to be like, yeah, we're beating Iran, we're kicking their butt, and we're going to win this war. Great. I want to show all the sides of the war that are happening. Admiral Brad Cooper, I'll let him talk here really quick.
Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified. You may have heard the president say just a little while ago that we have sunk or destroyed 24 ships. That was true at the moment. We're now up over 30 ships. And in just the last few hours, we hit an Iranian drone carrier ship, roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. And as we speak, it's on fire. Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified. You may have heard the president say just a little while ago that we have sunk or destroyed 24 ships. That was true at the moment. We're now up over 30 ships. And in just the last few hours, we hit an Iranian drone carrier ship, roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. And as we speak, it's on fire. Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified. You may have heard the president say just a little while ago that we have sunk or destroyed 24 ships. That was true at the moment. We're now up over 30 ships. And in just the last few hours, we hit an Iranian drone carrier ship, roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. And as we speak, it's on fire.
So basically, short version is there's a lot of successes on the U.S. side. So we'll see where that goes over time. But it does seem like both sides are making some good hits and taking each other out. But as far as the Navy and the Air Force, it looks like the Iranian Navy and Air Force, anything that's not underground, and even some of that has been hit. And this is another view of the airstrike in Beirut just a few hours ago. Leveling buildings. And typically for these, a lot of times Iran will pre-warn. So they'll send out either pamphlets and or send to apps and post online. There's another one, letting people know where these strikes are going to be. There have been a few where they've said they're going to hit a certain building, and they hit that building and the one next to it because there was a IRGC general or someone in the military next door. So obviously the people in that same building would have gotten hit too. But it seems like they're trying to at least warn people ahead of time. And you'll see if you go on X, these little graphics come out with the exact areas they're going to hit. I don't know, in like 10 minutes plus, right? Up to maybe 30, 40 minutes ahead of time so people can get out of those buildings. So at least they're doing that. Trump is saying we are moving thousands of people out of various countries throughout the Middle East. It's being done quietly but seamlessly. The State Department under Secretary Marco Rubio is doing a great job. So they said they are moving people out officially. I'll get to him in a second. I just want to make sure there's no more explosions in Beirut right now really quick. No. That's clear. Yeah. Okay. And this is the new DHS secretary, Senator Mullins. He says, you know where to find me anytime, any place. He's getting all fired up. Seems like he's a tough guy.
Quit the tough guy.
Oh, of course they're playing music. I'll just read it. But he's basically saying, you know where to find me anytime, any place, cowboy. Sir, this is a time. This is a place. You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults, and we can finish it here. Stand your butt up then. So he's ready to have a physical altercation in court or in Senate with somebody else. So that is the new DHS secretary. Axios says Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Arab foreign ministers in a series of phone calls Thursday that the war is expected to last several more weeks. Rubio said the current military focus is on Iran's missile launchers, stockpiles, and factories. Interestingly, though, Trump was saying even longer, like indefinitely, right, as long as it takes. And then I heard other sources say September would be the earliest. So we're hearing a lot of mixed messages here, but I think the takeaway is it's going to be a while. Of course, they're saying CENTCOM. U.S. combat power is building. Iranian combat power is declining. We're winning, they're losing. That's the message going out. This is them hitting some launchers. Like I said, they've hit over think it was 300 or 400 plus launchers have been hit. This is just surface launchers. They've also been using drones and other methods to try to attack the underground missile cities. That's something that we talked about last night. And U.S. Air Force B-2 stealth bombers have been dropping these GBU-57 bunker busters. And these are the ones that, you know, these are probably the only ones or something similar that can actually get down and cause enough damage to even take out these underground bunkers and missile cities. And they have to use several. So I heard that when they got Khomeini, I heard that they used 50. I think it was 50 of these or something similar. They were bunker busting type missiles to keep digging down deeper and deeper with each hit until they got to the point where they thought they hit the right spot. And I think another one recently was 30. And if you're talking, you know, $1 million plus each, it adds up pretty quick. So I'll show this video here really quick.
میبینی صدا انفجارشو؟
من اینا رو فقط تو کال آف دیوتی دیدم.
And I'm sure they could probably feel that through the ground, most likely. Yes, Moon Goddess, I did get your email. I need to get caught up on a lot of emails, actually. I have a lot of Charlie Kirk emails, too, waiting for me. So an Iranian warship is docked at India's Kochi port. So India, you know, showing support through partnership in this situation. And we know that India is also having issues with oil in Russia. So I'm not sure which side they're going to end up on at the end of this. There's just some more attacks in Iran. There's ongoing bombing, basically 24/7. And it does seem, at least from what I'm seeing, it looks like the U.S. is targeting. Looks like the U.S. is targeting the military infrastructure, and Israel is targeting the leadership. So it seems like they've split their responsibilities. And we know that a lot of people are talking about this Kristi Noem stuff. So Bill Malugin is reporting that Trump called Senator John Kennedy furious that Kristi Noem testified the president personally signed off on a $200 million ad contract for DHS. And the ad, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's her. She's riding on a horse. She's like out in the country, hanging out and that kind of stuff. And a lot of people said it was pretty, you know, for $200 million, that's an insane amount of money for that. Yeah, someone says they're scared if China gets involved. If China or Russia get involved, then we're officially in the final stages of World War III to some people. It's interesting. So I actually heard Canadian Prepper was talking about this earlier, and I thought the way he put it was pretty spot on. He said that the way most people think of World War III is like basically when like nukes start flying, and he's saying no, that's the end of World War III. So we're in World War III now. Financially hacking, you know, like trade wars and that kind of stuff. We're already in it. We're having proxy wars in Ukraine and in Israel with Iran, and pretty soon, you know, with China. So we're already having the war. It's just when the nukes fly, if they fly, that will end the war, most likely. Just like Hiroshima in Japan, right? Think of it that way. Iran delays naming a new leader over security concerns. I don't blame them. Would you want to be named the new leader of Iran right now? I know they've had a couple that have been sharing responsibility, but I would not want to be the new Ayatollah officially and publicly at this point. Israel officials say 2 Iranian assassination attempts targeted Israeli diplomats in the UAE, and they were foiled. Security services evacuated non-essential staff after what officials described as a targeted hunt for Israeli diplomatic personnel. So both sides are doing assassinations or attempting assassinations. I'll let Pete talk.
That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America. Why? Because every sovereign nation and territory north of the equator, from Greenland to Ecuador and from Alaska to Guyana, is not part of the global south. It is our immediate security perimeter in this great neighborhood that we all live in. Each one of these countries border either the North Atlantic or the North Pacific. Each one of these countries sits north of the two basic geographic barriers that exist in this region.
Someone said, let's see, nukes are a fear tactic. They don't exist. They definitely exist, and they've definitely been used. And the technology, some of the technology has been used for nuclear reactors that power things. So it's not a fantasy that they exist, and they're definitely capable of a lot of things. But interestingly, there's the whole idea of like the nuclear winter, you know, like nuclear fallout, which obviously is dangerous, but the whole like idea that it would cloud the atmosphere and cause, you know, decades of like cooling and an ice age and wipe out, you know, 3/4 or, you know, 75, 80% of the planet. I mean, that I guess technically that could happen if all of them were launched at once type of thing. But that whole idea was pushed by one guy, and it was obviously never proven because it's never happened. But there's a lot of other people who think that wouldn't actually happen and that nuclear war is very survivable. So if you look at Hiroshima, a lot of the survivors were right near, you know, the point where it blew up. Like they were, you know, some of them were within like a few hundred feet. So a lot of people got vaporized and that kind of stuff, but other people had permanent burns and like some of their skin melted off and stuff like that. Sorry to be graphic, but they survived, and a lot of them survived the radiation too. So there's a lot of misconceptions about nukes, but they definitely exist. The UK government will appoint an anti-Muslim hostility SAR, so they're already starting damage control. They're seeing a lot of hatred towards Muslims, and if you remember, the same thing happened for 9/11. And then at some point it switched to some other people. And now it's going back to Muslims, apparently. And there's more reports of explosions in Kuwait that's been ongoing. And then Iran is using Arash 2 drones alongside Shahed drones. I have not seen these Arash 2 drones yet before this. So as you can see, it's like a small plane. Most people think of drones as like a quadcopter. But most of the drones that are being used in war, including in Ukraine and Russia, is from this style. And they're pretty powerful and not very expensive. We have more footage of aerial vehicles being taken down. This is Iran taking down Israeli ones. And they've shown multiple videos of this happening. So clearly they have the ability. And this is just some images from over Iran. You can see they're hitting multiple spots across the city. Mostly Tehran. And it does seem like people are somewhat getting used to it. They're starting to film it more. But what I'm not seeing anymore, because of I assume the censorship online, is I'm not seeing as much information coming out of Israel. So they're really cutting it down, you know? Like they're really censoring the information. So I don't know if there's a lot going on in Israel that we're not seeing, I guess. Oh, you guys are talking about Poseidon and some other stuff. Interesting. They're hitting schools and gymnasiums. Yeah, I'm sure they're hitting a little bit of everything, unfortunately. And I thought this was interesting.
Have joined them actually in their policy of changing the political structure of Iran. By the way, you have to know that President Trump is asking for change in the leadership of Iran, and he says that I have to have voice on that, while he cannot appoint even the mayor of New York.
So like I said, they're roasting him. They said, how are you going to do regime change and appoint leadership in other countries? You can't even appoint your own mayor of New York. You can't even handle your own country. And this is the kind of stuff we're seeing a lot coming out. And they're just basically letting them have it. And I mean, some of the stuff they're saying is not necessarily untrue. William, you're saying that your messages are being censored? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, unfortunately. And I think the stream is also being censored. Typically, we'd have, 2,000 or 3,000 plus in here, and we're under 500. So I think that they're not happy that people like me are talking about this. But then you get channels like Agenda Free and The Enforcer and presenting its politics and who you know, and they've been around a lot. They got to be going on like 7 or 8 plus years each. But yeah, they're definitely suppressing this stuff. And Cuba is facing what is happening in Iran now. That's what Trump is saying. This was the little thing I was talking about where I think maybe there might be something going on there as far as like a trying regime change or maybe a possible assassination attempt or something else, because that was kind of cryptic. And they said the war in Iran is a 12 on a 10-point scale, maybe even a 15. That's Trump saying that. The U.S. has sunk 25 ships out of the Iran fleet, and the UAE is supposed to be freezing Iranian assets. And a religious leader could head Iran if he has a good relationship with U.S. and Israel. And there is one gentleman who I believe is, we saw this one, who I believe is supposed to be taking over. But it sounds like it's someone that people are familiar with, and I've seen his face many, many times. He says that he would accept the position.
Relación con la primera de las cuestiones, ¿no?
Okay, it's in Spanish, so it's not going to work. But the Spanish prime minister says between allied countries, it is good to support each other when one is right, and also to point out when a mistake is being made, as is the case with this war. So they're basically saying that, they don't agree with it. And Spain has been an issue for a little while now. So it seems like they're pushing back pretty hard. I'm not sure if this is going to turn into like more NATO issues, but not looking good. The U.S. Army abruptly canceled a major training exercise for the 82nd Airborne Division's headquarters, filling speculation that the Rapid Response Unit could deploy to the Middle East as the U.S. conflict with Iran expands. So they're canceling Army exercises and possibly putting those people into Iran. So that shows you that this is growing bigger than we hoped it would, for sure, but bigger than we thought it would, I'm sure, as well. Unfortunately. And Medvedev in Russia says that Gulf Arab countries let American bases into their territory. Naively, they expected protection from them like hell. The U.S. just uses them while protecting only one country. Think long and hard. So definitely seems like, everyone's taking an advantage of this situation politically and probably eventually militarily. So I think we're going to keep seeing things escalate, but with the way they've been censoring everything, I don't know how often you're going to get news like this. I mean, you look at certain channels that just show maybe the explosions on cams or something. They don't get censored as hard, but the ones that actually show the information that's going on and the explosions and some of the political stuff going on, they seem to get, throttled quite a bit. Let's see. Yeah, Valhalla had a good video talking about the Marine that had his arm broken and some of the politics around the Navy SEAL that was involved. So if you get a chance, definitely go watch that. This is Lebanon getting hit, exploding. People are so used to this now. They're just hanging out, talking on their phones. This is Strait of Hormuz. This is a tanker. There have been a few that have been attacked. There's been a tugboat that's also been attacked. Has my voice been choppy the whole time or just now, Kimberly? Yeah, there shouldn't be. I'm checking everything right now, but there shouldn't be anything making it choppy. So if it's choppy, they're messing with it. And if it is choppy, then refresh. Sometimes the stream has to catch up. And some people are saying it's fine. So if you are breaking up, then just refresh really quick. That's usually the issue, is the YouTube stream just needs to catch up to itself. So I would probably refresh and you should be good to go. Everything on my end looks good. Signal strength is good on YouTube as well. So I don't see any reason why there'd be problems. All right. So Strait of Hormuz getting attacked, also emptying out. We can see that on the live monitoring here in a minute. U.S. Secretary Mark Rubio told Arab foreign ministers in calls Thursday that the war is expected to last several more weeks. We've seen this in a couple different places, a couple different ways. But based on everything I've seen, they're thinking like past September. So like six months to a year, at least. And that's if China and Russia don't get involved, because then obviously they can go a lot longer. The U.S. military has more than enough munitions. This is according to the White House. They have more than enough munitions, ammo, and weapon stockpiles to continue demolishing the Iranian regime and finish Operation Epic Fury, no matter how long it lasts. Interesting statement. Nevertheless, President Trump has always been intensely focused on strengthening our military. That's true, which is why the meeting with defense contractors was scheduled weeks ago. So apparently there's a meeting coming up. I don't know who the contractors are. I assume it's kind of the same people. Someone says they've heard we'll be in charge of Cuba this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big attack there and a takeover based on a couple comments I just read from him recently. He probably figures like, while I'm at it, may as well. So if that happens, I'll cover that too. But that's very interesting. And the president will continue to call on these U.S. companies to more speedily build American-made weapons, which are the absolute best in the world. So it sounds like he is basically turning the economy into a wartime economy, at least for these companies. I'm not sure if it's going to spread to the more like blue-collar district or not. And see if there's anything else here we need to worry about. We already talked about the military exercise. The French aircraft Charles de Gaulle has arrived in the Mediterranean Sea. And originally they said they were going to send it. And then remember, they retracted that. They were actually not going to send it. And apparently now it's there. So they're not really there, from what I hear, to help the U.S. They're there more to protect the other Gulf states. So but at least they showed up, right? And footage has emerged of the destruction of the bunkers getting hit. And I will show this video here. As you can see, they tend to hit the same spot multiple times. And these bunkers run long distances underground. So they would probably get some kind of map showing the GPS coordinates of where it runs. And then they'll drop multiple sets of these bunker busters on top of each other, even, to try and get deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think in most cases, they, maybe based on the people they have inside of Iran, they might know the layout of these and how deep they are. But some of them, I'm sure they're just guessing. So that's why they're throwing 30 or 50 at each of these bunkers. This is the Patriot. This is just a guy saying, basically, all the Patriots that were shot to get this one missile is about $100 million.
Oh my God, I see it, I see it, I see it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, it's so close.
Oh my God.
1 million,
Oh, that's
2
amazing.
Oh
million,
my God.
3 million, 4 million. It just keeps adding up quick. And they're using these all over the Gulf states.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
It hit one.
Holy shit. Oh my God.
But just the amount of money, $1 billion per day. All right, so this is who I was talking about before. Exiled Prince Reza Pahlavi has accepted the role as Iran's transitional leader. So this is the guy that, I don't know if this is like the U.S. appointed guy that they approve of, but are there bots? I'm seeing some random stuff being said that has nothing to do with anything anyone's talking about. Let's see. We're spending over $100,000 of tax dollars every second of this war. That's what somebody's saying in chat. Okay. Hey, Kimberly, welcome back. Yeah, if there's any bots or anything, let me know their name, and I can get them out of here. Or you can let Kimberly know. We'll come back to this one here in a second. This is Iran getting hit, and these explosions are massive. That's probably that same area where they were hitting the bunkers. I'm trying to see if because some of these are a little bit older. Yeah, they're just hiding launchers, more explosions. Spanish Prime Minister says the U.S. war was this war with Iran is an extraordinary mistake. Obviously, he's against it. And then you have people that are getting very radicalized. So these people before were not pro IRGC Iran, and now they are. So they're kind of like joining the cause. And anytime you martyr somebody and attack their country, just like that little girl that we saw that was talking about her parents, you're going to make all of them significantly more against you. In Wonderland, hey, I hope you and your kids had a fantastic day together. We did. We had a good time. They went and they sang and did their little competitions and stuff, and it went pretty well. Then we had a nice breakfast after that. And then there were more assassination attempts. But this is something I want to talk about here. So this, I think he's speaking English, so I'll just let him say it.
The world saw your battleship sunk in the Indian Ocean. Dozens of Iranian sailors died. Your response was, quote, "Mark my words, the U.S. will come to bitterly regret the precedent it has set." So what is Iran going to do? And at this point, given the state of your military right now, what can you do?
Well, first of all, that was a training training ship, which was invited by the Indian Navy to take part in an exercise. And they went there as their guests, the Indians guests, and they did participate in that exercise, and they were in their way back home, and the ship was unarmed. So attacking an unarmed ship full of training officers and sailors is a war crime, I have to say.
What type of battleship? Minister, excuse me, but what type of military would allow a battleship into the ocean with no weapons on board?
Well, because it was, the goal was not, their aim was not going to war. They went for an exercise, which was arranged by the Indian Navy. There are so many other guests who went there, and they, took part in a parade. And, everything was a peaceful, training course or peaceful training process. So they didn't need, weapons. They actually went to that mission long before the war started. And when I said that the U.S. would regret that, I meant that they have, the U.S. have unfortunately set a precedent which is, against the international law and would actually damage the whole concept of.
So we don't need to play the whole thing, but what do you guys think about that? He's basically saying that the ship was there for a training exercise. It was unarmed, and they were on their way home, and then they got torpedoed. If you guys think that they were unarmed and this story is true, put a 1 in the chat. If you think that he's just making this story up to do like more smear campaigns against the U.S., put a 2. Someone put a 3. Maybe 3 means they're hungry or something. A lot of 1s. So a lot of people seem to believe this guy that they were just there. And remember, they did do some training exercises with Russia before the U.S. showed up. So that there was still a Russian ship that was there. And I think it's since skirted out of there. But yeah, I mean, these type things like this, this is, to me, this is just as bad, or, well, maybe not just as bad because the kids, but if you compare this to kind of like the girls' school that got hit, that's kind of where this sits with me. So, yeah, I mean, his demeanor and the way he is doesn't seem like he's lying, and he's so calm, so he seems like he's just like saying the facts. So if that's the case, then, maybe another war crime. So at least a few so far. Someone said you can read about the event. It was kind of like a boat show. Many countries were just showing their ships. They were not battle ready or in battle. Then my question to that would be, I mean, if they knew that and the U.S. military and stuff was there, why didn't they radio in and say, hey, We're an unarmed ship. We're just sitting here. We have nothing to do with this. Please don't hit us, right? They all communicate with each other. So I don't know. It's just a really strange situation because they definitely could have communicated to somebody. Yeah, this is the guy I was telling you about before that seems like he's so confident in what Iran can do that he's kind of like, just wait to see what we have. Just wait to see until our new missiles launched or whatever it may be. So either he knows something or he's a very good actor. All right, let me pull this out. So we can go ahead and switch over to live monitoring. And I'll check and see if there's actually any ongoing alarms or anything. It looks like actually Israel is pretty lit up right now with a lot of warnings. I'm trying to see what there are. Let's see. Looks like mostly drones. So I think, like they were saying before, there was a missile attack a couple hours ago. And I think they said they hit all of them. They intercepted them all. But as of right now, it looks like the biggest threat is drones. And that's been pretty consistent across the board. So yeah, let's I don't see anything on Beirut either. Let me check and see if there's anything going on with like the UAE and those people.
Country and no men in women's sports. And the president putting all of these priorities together, it speaks to just how common sense they are. These are all common sense priorities of this president that are backed by the vast majority of Americans, and he wants Republicans to act on them as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Ken Paxton laid out some conditions yesterday saying that he would drop out of the race if Senate leadership on the Republican side agreed to getting rid of the filibuster, for example. What are the president's thoughts on that?
I won't get ahead of the president on the Texas Senate race. I know it's of great interest to everyone. I'm no longer his political spokesperson. I'm a government spokesperson, so I'll let him speak on that directly.
You elaborated on the president's decision to tap Markwayne Mullin as the next DHS secretary. Can you talk a little bit about the rationale for the choice, why Mullin was the best candidate in his eyes, and also your message to congressional Democrats who continue to keep the DHS unfunded?
Yeah, well, Senator Markwayne Mullin has been a strong friend of the president and a big supporter of the president's immigration policies. Not only that, he's exceptionally talented, qualified, and I know well respected by his peers on Capitol Hill from both sides of the aisle. So we look forward to his expeditious confirmation, and I know the White House will be working with our counterparts in the Senate to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. The president has said he wants to be involved in Iran's future. He has also called the son of Supreme Leader Khamenei a lightweight, and he has also said that United States strikes have taken out the potential candidates. So does the United States now have any candidates or like looking at candidates who may replace, who may lead Iran for the future?
I know there's a number of people that our intelligence agencies and the United States government are looking at, but I won't get any further on that. Sure.
Is the president satisfied with the pace of the investigation into whether the U.S. military did hit that Iranian school? Is the White House concerned that this was the United States?
Again, as I
User TTL 19er, thanks for becoming a new member. William, thanks for the super chat. We still have to secure an area and put a nest team on the ground to secure that radioactive material. Correct. You said you're being censored. Was that maybe something to do with the nuclear material you're talking about, possibly? Thanks for that super as well. Bonnie Lyon, thanks for the super. Thanks, TriggerSmart, for covering this. I didn't understand what's going on. I came in late. Hello, everyone. I'm near Fort Bragg, 82nd Airborne. William, thanks for another super. We have to put troops on ground to recover nuclear material. Can't leave it there. Correct. And that's why I have the radiation map on here as well. I'm curious if it would pick up in that area. If something was hit, if something was released. They said there's enriched uranium that's there, supposedly. So obviously that would be hopefully buried underground, which is a good way to deal with radiation too. Stephen Godwin, thanks for the super. I live in the south of UK. We have docks in Southampton, and there are 4 Navy ships from Turkey with helicopters, etc. docked the last 3 days. A bit too close to home for my liking. Love the stream. Yeah, make sure you're taking care of yourself. There was something that did come out. They basically said, you know, if things keep going the way it is and these other countries keep helping the U.S., then they said that, you know, possibly the UK and Europe could become, you know, within striking distance. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And obviously they haven't been shy about hitting other people. Roger Lane, thanks for 10 more memberships. I think he's the OG of memberships at this point. He gave, I think he gave like 80 or 100 yesterday. Awesome. Always much appreciated. Make sure you guys tell him thank you. And William gifted 5 more memberships. Make sure you guys tell him thank you as well.
On these top stories when we return. Stay with us.
It looks like most of you are happy that Kristi Noem was fired. It's at 60. Al Jazeera, which seems to be a crowd favorite, or stay on Fox Live now. And I think, based on everything I'm seeing, it seems like the coverage is really slowing down, even on those channels. A lot of their coverage now isn't even about the war. They're talking about, what's his name? Samuel, what is his name? Reverend Jesse Jackson. They're talking about his funeral and stuff today and different things on their war stream. So I think they are getting pretty much running out of material. At least the material they'll talk about, I should say. Yeah, if you're having issues with the volume and stuff, then I would refresh. I'm not sure. I'm looking at all this stuff here, and all my levels are good. Stream is healthy. My audio looks good. So if you guys are having issues with audio. All right, what'd you say? 94% Al Jazeera. Stay in business with polls like this. Nine toes, huh? What's the story behind that? What is the story behind your 9 toes? All right, let me switch to Al Jazeera. Give me just 1 second. Stand by. The war. So let me see if they're actually... I know we don't have to have it be the war. All right, let's pull this in.
State media were claiming that's a delegitimizing attempt, basically, by reporters when they do that. I looked at the strikes on Israel by Iran. Iran killed 9 people in Israel. They did not say, according to Israeli media or Israel says. So there was a double standard in the reporting. And again, I just asked this question to all of the viewers. What would the reporting look like if it was Iran killing 168 mostly little girls? It would be very different.
Omar, you're in the U.S. This war, according to latest poll numbers, is not something that a majority of Americans wanted. Do you think an event like the one we're talking about now and the killing of over 160 school children, do you think that is something that, how will that be absorbed by the American public? And again, we don't have a firm answer as to who it is, but we have major U.S. media outlets saying it is, quote, probably the U.S.
I mean, it could certainly dampen public opinion more. It could cast doubt on the Trump administration's rationale and objectives in this war. I mean, Dr. Masri is right. I mean, this story was being shrugged off. I brought it up to people that I was speaking to here in Washington at the time because the rationale they were bringing up. I mean, I'm speaking about Republicans. Was, well, there are tears of joy in every Iranian at the moment that their government is going to be overthrown by the U.S. And I said, well, are there tears of joy in the mothers and fathers who just lost? At the time it was 40 schoolgirls. Now we're talking over 100 schoolgirls. So this changes the the kind of calculus and the how this government, the Trump administration, is portraying this war, that they're fighting this on behalf of liberating the people from this evil government, but at the same time, you're killing civilians. We're seeing what's happening in Tehran is being leveled. Israel's taking kind of a Gaza approach to Tehran at the moment, and on the very first day, the U.S. likely killed over 150 school children. I mean, so this will weigh certainly, I think, and cleave the kind of American public and the the rationale that's being put forth by the Trump administration.
Abdullah, you're an assistant professor in international affairs. I just wonder, what are you tracking? What are you looking at right now when you check the news, check developments on a daily basis to see where this might be headed? What are the next big signals you're looking out for?
It's a very important question, Cyril. Things are going really badly in the region at the moment with no hope of ending this conflict. The GCC countries have mentioned with the EU yesterday that they are believing that dialogue is important, and they stressed on the Omani role. Oman played a very significant role in 2015 with the first deal, and even this year with hosting the negotiations in Oman and also in Geneva. So it's very important to keep the door of diplomacy opened, because all the differences can be settled down by dialogue, by sitting down, by just having a chat about it. It's very normal and easy, and not to go to conflicts, because when we go to conflicts, we're going to have humanitarian.
Breaking news, Azerbaijani state media reports that the Iranian IRGC allegedly planned a terrorist attack in Azerbaijan targeting the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceylan oil pipeline, the Israeli embassy, and a synagogue. Authorities say the men have been arrested and the plot foiled. And Khan News says Israel estimates that Azerbaijan will also attack and join the coalition. There may be other countries to join action against Iran and its interests in the region as well. So this is growing. And this is what you would expect with like a World War III type situation, right? Gets out of hand, and then China and Russia join. Russia currently is providing intelligence to Iran regarding U.S. positions during the ongoing military operation, 3 sources say. So Russia is already assisting with targeting information, much like the U.S. does for Ukraine.
For the sake of safety and stability in the region. But also this doesn't mean that targeting other countries in the region would just would be easy, because sovereignty is a red line, and this is being crossed by Iran several times, and this is not good. This is actually driving the whole region into instability, and this is something the whole world is witnessing and suffering from. When we talk about the global security, and we talk about the global energy security, when you talk about there is no liquefied natural gas anymore from Qatar, and you talk about Bahrain and Saudi Arabia being targeted when it comes to oil facility, this is not good. Also, we talk about aviation and also maritime. It's very important. The region is very vital to the world, and if we need to get things done the right way, then we have to sit down and talk about it.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this discussion. I think we'll get another shot at it a little later. And that energy question that you brought up, Abdullah, is one that we're going to be asking later in this program. Abdullah Bandar Al-Taibi, Mohammed Al-Masri, Omar Rahman, thank you very much to all of you.
Looks like our drone's back out again, doing its crop circles. This is off the east coast of Cyprus. And a lot of people think this is for basically monitoring to see if there's any incoming from Lebanon. And a lot of Stratotankers, maybe some Pegasus. These are all refueling planes. Looks like they're doing refueling patterns as well. These are all Stratos, it looks like. So they may have just got done doing a run. Typically, they refill with their transponders off. So maybe they just completed. I've been watching these Poseidons lately because it seems like they've been doing a lot of runs, and the Poseidons look for submarines under the water. So let's see if we have any active. Let me go to Intel. Oh, wow. So, oh, okay. That can't be good. So we have several. I've never seen this many at once before. We have several Poseidons on the East Coast. And these are all, obviously, they're not all over water right now. But, and there's two off the West Coast over here by Seattle. But last night when I searched this, there was only 2 active. And now there's all these active just in this area. We have 2 actively flying their patterns, searching. So it looks like off the East Coast. So this would be, you know, obviously Mar-a-Lago would be down in this area. So this would be a very high security area. And yeah, they're flying crazy patterns too. So they must think there's something right in this area. And what about up here? We have another one over here. Just doing screenshots. I don't know if you can see me doing screenshots or not, but when I pause for a second, that's what I'm doing. Have any of these been out? That one did not go out. Yeah, I did that. Neither. Oh, that one did. So it looks like they're really, really watching this East Coast over here.
So much uncertainty over this conflict and how long it is going to continue. We had President Donald Trump saying on Friday that only unconditional surrender from Iran would lead to an end to this conflict. Obviously, that has people concerned about what that will mean for the worldwide oil supply. We've also had that interview you mentioned with Qatar's energy minister in the Financial Times, where he said that Gulf oil production would have to come to a complete standstill if the situation in the Strait of Hormuz wasn't addressed, if tankers were not allowed to pass through there. That's an area that handles 20% of global oil supply. That obviously is going to be a concern for investors here in the United States as well. Even as the Trump administration has tried to signal that they will take steps to ease the pressures on oil and on transport. Clearly, investors are watching every move and reacting to that. It's been an incredibly volatile week with the markets here. That's a big concern. And then we have other economic news weighing on investors as well. So all that just creating incredible uncertainty. And the longer this conflict continues, the more the impact is going to be felt in the markets.
Kristen Salumi reporting from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Thank you very much. The head of the International Energy Agency says the crisis unfolding in the Middle East has prompted discussion among some countries about whether to go back to using Russian gas. Fatih Birol stressed that using Russian supplies is politically sensitive due to the Ukraine war.
The current the crisis in the Middle East in some quarters lead questions about the Russia, whether to go back to Russia or not. Of course, it will depend the countries their own decision. But my personal view is, first of all, one of the Europe's historical mistake was the over-reliance of its energy sources on one single country, which is Russia.
But joining us from London is Chris Weafer, the Chief Executive Officer of Macro Advisory. That's a strategic consultancy which focuses on Russia and the Eurasia region. Chris, welcome back on Al Jazeera. European countries have spent the last 4 years weaning themselves from Russian energy because of the Russia-Ukraine war. They're about to complete that process next year. No more oil and gas, well, no more gas by the end of next year, and there are already virtually no more oil. Could this force them to go back to Russian energy?
Well, as the previous speaker said, politically that's extremely difficult. A lot of countries will be very opposed to going back to Russian oil or gas. But the reality is, and I feel like in terms of real politics, as we used to call it before, the reality is that, there is not a reliable alternative supply. If the conflict in the Gulf continues or even extends for a couple of weeks, then we know there's going to be shortages of oil and gas.
There have been some missile launches detected heading towards Israel. Looks like the Jerusalem area. So we'll be monitoring for that and see if that happens live or not.
Discussion about going back to the same level of dependency as was the case before 2022, but to cut off Russia completely, especially as Russia is next door to Europe, now looks increasingly dangerous. Just to remind you, the EU has already adopted a timeline which has been approved. And that timeline says that no EU country should buy any new gas, LNG gas from Russia after the 25th of April, so coming up quite soon, and no more piped gas after the middle of April and then in June. And then by the end of this year, the European Union should not be buying any gas by pipe or LNG from Russia whatsoever. So, that's obviously a discussion that's now going to have to take place, but probably we'll wait to see how the war in the Gulf shapes out and try and get a measure of what the damage to the energy markets will be from that.
Most countries have strategic reserves of gas, right? So that if there's a decrease in their normal supply, they can absorb that. They can ride that out for a while. In a scenario where the Strait of Hormuz remains shut, let's say we don't know exactly, but it remains shut for weeks, how long before Europe in particular feels the pinch and, gets close to running out of its strategic reserves?
Well,
looks like our pizza index is spiking up a little bit. 139%, 160, 260, 160. So it looks like the Pentagon's pretty busy. Of course, this is just, it's not official. This is just pizza places in the region, in the area of the government buildings and stuff. Whenever they spike up, that usually means people are heads down doing something important.
Of months, there's certainly enough gas in storage for Europe almost to the end of the year. But the problem is then you'll have none coming into next winter unless you can start buying supplies from early summer. So if the straits stay blocked, then, although Europe does not buy a lot of gas from the Gulf countries, but there will obviously be huge demand from countries that do, such as China, India, the other Asian markets. So there will be a significant shortage of available gas in the world, and Europe will not be able to rebuild its reserves coming into next autumn or winter. And so if you like, it's not a case of we're going to run out tomorrow, but it is a case of the situation is becoming quite dangerous and urgent, and a discussion about how to refill those tanks and where to get gas will really have to start around late April or May, exactly at the time when the EU is planning to ban any new short-term LNG contracts from Russia.
Chris, that's the picture for Europe, but there's also a big Asia question because they buy a lot of the gas that comes out of this region, a lot of Qatar's liquefied natural gas. Yesterday we were reporting that South Korea is a big buyer. Japan is also heavily dependent on energy from this region. What happens to Asian countries?
Well, in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, you're going to see an even more significant rise in the price of gas and oil if the straits remain blocked. because countries are now already starting to push into their reserves. If they can't replenish those reserves, and clearly they'll want to manage some reserves if the situation remains uncertain. So you're going to see a much more significant rise in energy prices, probably towards the end of March, early April, if the straits remain blocked and if those volumes are not going. And then you'll have countries like Korea, Japan, and China, which will be scouring all global markets looking for any available LNG. So the price of energy, oil and gas, will rise around the world because China and those Asian countries, of course, will scramble to buy whatever is available. So you can't say that any one region is safe from what could be the impact of a very severe energy crisis in about 2 or 3 weeks' time at the latest.
Chris Weaver, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera. Iran's military has warned Iraq's Kurdistan regional government that it will take actions against any move to deploy forces along the Iranian border. This comes after Donald Trump said that if Kurdish forces want to mount an armed offensive against the Iranian government, then he would support it. There's also been a series of attacks on Kurdish targets in the region. The latest attack hit a site belonging to an exiled Iranian Kurdish group based in Iraq. Drones and missiles targeted the site in northern Iraq belonging to the Iranian Kurdistan Democratic Party. We're getting live pictures now of the skyline over Tel Aviv, where I'm being told an attack is now imminent. Now, throughout the day, sirens have been sounding in various regions of Israel, and that includes Tel Aviv, which has been one of the key targets for Iranian missiles since this war began. We're in the 7th day now, and Tel Aviv has been a target of many missiles, most of them intercepted, but not all. So this is the situation in Tel Aviv. All right, we understand a missile has been launched. That's something we're monitoring. Now, Al Jazeera's Asad Beg is in Iraq and has spoken to the leader of one of the exiled Iranian Kurdish groups. Baba Sheikh Hosseini is the Secretary General of the Chabad Organization of Iranian Kurdistan, and he confirmed that the U.S. has made contact with the group and says it is highly likely that exiled Iranian Kurdish groups will stage a ground operation.
Just directly, are your fighters already mounting a ground operation against Iran?
At this moment, no. We are not currently engaged in any offensive operations. We have been planning for a long time, and now that conditions are more favorable, there is a strong probability of action. We have yet to reach a decisive decision, but it is highly likely we will move forward with a ground operation. The Americans have contacted us through various channels, but until now we have not met directly, but they contacted us. They asked what we should do with this regime. What are the ways, and talking if we can cooperate together in the future. Only in that context. There has been no direct communication until now, but through intermediaries, through other Kurdish people. When the time comes and we meet with them, it becomes clear in the operational field. Of course, in the operational field, we need weaponry, explosives, and also advanced equipment. As you know, the equipment we have is basic and old. Today's wars are more advanced than before. So if there was something like this, we have this request.
And 1 week on, the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran is spreading throughout the Middle East and beyond. Julita Iger takes a look at the countries now involved as tensions continue to escalate.
On the 28th of February, the U.S. and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran. Since then, more than 100 cities have been attacked, and at least 1,300 people have been killed, including Iran's supreme leader. Iran was quick to retaliate, launching thousands of strikes towards Israel. One of the deadliest attacks was on the city of Beit Shemesh. But Iran also launched near simultaneous attacks on countries in the region hosting US bases. These are the countries that have been affected so far, and the missile interceptions are still taking place. Some of the attacks have hit US embassies, oil refineries, and even hotels. Then, on the 2nd of March, Hezbollah decided to attack Israel in response to the killing of Iran's supreme leader. And of course, Israel retaliated. The violence has sparked widespread displacement across Lebanon. On the same day, Cyprus reported that a British airbase had been attacked. Several European countries have decided to send naval assets to Cyprus following that attack. Then, on the 4th, Turkey said that NATO air defense systems had downed an Iranian missile that was heading into its airspace. The same day, the US said a submarine had sank an Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka, killing more than 80 people on board. The ship was taking part in a military exercise in India and was heading back to Iran. Then, on the 5th, Azerbaijan became the latest country to be dragged into the conflict. Officials said drones had fallen near an international airport. The US and Israeli assault on Iran has spread far across the region.
Introducing Al Jazeera correspondent Ali Hashem, who's joined us in the studio, and both of us are watching right now the live skies over Tel Aviv. I told you a moment ago, we got the information that there is a missile attack incoming. Now, sirens have been sounding throughout the day in various parts of Israel, and as we know, Tel Aviv has been one of the key targets of Iranian missiles. Multiple ballistic missiles launched daily at Tel Aviv. Now, Israel, as many of our viewers by now will know, has a layered system of air defenses to shoot down anything from rockets to short-range, medium-range, and long-range missiles. However, and the interception rate is said to be in the high 90%, so most of the missiles end up being shot down, but not all. And at least 11 people have been killed in Israel over the past week, 9 of them in one attack in the central part of the country. That attack apparently was targeting a bunker, but it's people, 9 people who lived in the buildings nearby who were killed in the attack. The total death toll in Israel as we stand is 11, and the death toll much, much higher in Iran. At least 1,200, 1,300 people have been killed in Iran after 7 days of conflict. So we'll continue to keep an eye out for this. Ali, we're hoping to have a conversation, and we can do 2 things at once. We keep an eye on this. You have covered the Middle East extensively, you have covered wars, and you have covered Iran extensively. So I was very keen to get how you think about where this might be going. What the different scenarios are. The most likely outcome of this war for you, and versus the worst case scenario, versus the earliest resolution scenario. Let's start with most likely, at least in the short term, right? Over the next few days, weeks, what do you think is the most likely scenario?
Well, the most likely scenario from my point of view is that this is going to extend. We're going to see more horizontal conflict. We see now the parallel conflict in Lebanon between Hezbollah and Israel. This is part of the war.
Yeah.
This is another front of this one war. There'll be another fronts. Probably the Yemen front is going to open one day.
The Houthis have not been activated or activated themselves yet.
Well, this is part, I think, of the gradual escalation coming from Tehran.
Explain.
This time, I think the Iranians are micromanaging the whole axis of resistance.
Despite the hits on the IRGC command and control centers, you still think that they're micromanaging?
It's clear that they are. They're in control. They're still in control because they're capable of launching their rockets at the right time. Yeah. They are controlling everything as far as they can, as much as they can.
Some of their missiles in Israel.
I can hear gunfire, but I'm not sure which cam it's on. Probably Beirut. Or I guess that could be air defense too. Nope, it's not from there.
Iraqi front, whereas Iraqi militias, Shiite militias, are currently efforting in neutralizing the Kurdish groups, Iranian Kurdish groups in northeast Iraq. So we're seeing several attacks towards Erbil, Sulaymaniyah, and the areas where there are Kurds. So it seems we are seeing different aspects, and this horizontal conflict is just extending one after the other. So yes, what I see as the most the less likely scenario for now.
Ali, pause for a second. I just want to acknowledge for our viewers that we're looking at the skies over the entire region right now. Okay, so top left, as you can see, is Tel Aviv. You've got Beirut, bottom left, Doha, bottom right, and Tehran, top right. And these are countries that have all been targeted daily. Tel Aviv, of course, Beirut by Israel, and Tehran has been struck by both the U.S. and Israel. As for Doha, it is one of many Gulf countries. In fact, all Gulf countries have been targeted, and this is happening daily. Sorry to interrupt. You said most likely scenario, at least for the immediate future, is Iran regionalizes even more than it has already done. And that would mean more activity from the Iran-aligned militias in Iraq and more activity to come, probably, from the Houthis in Yemen.
Yeah, and that means Iran wouldn't have to launch as much missiles as it is. For example, right now, there are some observers saying that Iran is sending less missiles. Yes, it's launching less missiles from Tehran, but there are more missiles being launched from Lebanon. So the idea is that just kind of distributing the effort. And it seems that the Iranians are going towards this new situation where there'll be several fronts.
Donald Trump has said there's not going to be a deal with Iran. All he wants is their complete, has said Iran is not going to surrender. That is not what they do. That is not what they've ever done. It just isn't.
Absolutely given the way the Iranians think, the way this the Islamic Republic built upon the principles of the Islamic Revolution, it came forward with three main pillars: independence, dignity, and freedom. So these I think they are going to surrender. Also, given the fact they come from an ideological school, which is
it's a clerical establishment that leads
clerical
Iran.
establishment. But they are the Shia school in clergy. This is more confrontational, and this is more raising the slogans of martyrdom. So there is a historical background here.
But the Iranian government and since the Islamic Revolution, look, everybody says their main goal here is for their form of governance to survive, for the establishment to survive. Even if leaders 1 through 10 get killed, they want the system to survive. Couldn't they massively compromise with the United States so that the system survives?
The system won't survive with surrender. It will survive with a compromise.
But can the country change its behavior in a way that would end up being acceptable to the U.S.? The U.S. says, look, we want no imminent threats against us, and we want, again, this is the U.S. talking, we don't want Iran to ever have a nuclear bomb. Do you think they could move in that direction?
Well, the Iranians are ready to say they just said it several times that they do not want a nuclear bomb. They said it.
Yes.
And they had the fatwa of the previous or the former supreme leader. Now, with the new supreme leader, I don't know if there's going to be a fatwa to prohibit the nuclear bomb. This is a yes, it's possible to see them giving concessions, but not on the.
Thank you very much. Studio, thanks for your analysis. It is.
I see some of you guys talking about the audio. Is my mic also cutting in and out? Yeah, I mean, like, the stream is healthy. Everything looks good. Audio looks good. I guess, you know, if you guys are having issues, it could be, and I don't think that's something I can fix myself, obviously, without stopping the stream. Yeah, I mean, it's mixed. Some people are saying there's no issues, and other people are saying there are, so. Yeah, and some saying it's cutting in and out. So, yeah, if you refresh and it doesn't fix it, then I'm not sure what else can be done besides stopping the stream. So let me know if it keeps going, and I'll see if maybe we need to cut it short.
Both the U.S. and Israel have acknowledged the strike occurred, but have not confirmed responsibility. Iran has launched another barrage of missiles at Israel. Overnight explosions caused extensive damage in Tel Aviv. At least 11 people have been killed in Israel since Saturday.
I love the dramatic music. Just checking to see if we have any nuclear attack codes or anything going on. I can't wait to get this new radio set up. I don't think you'll be able to see this if I show you, but I just got this little shortwave radio to listen to all this stuff on. And I tested it out, and the audio itself, like you heard, is just a lot of static. So I am upgrading significantly to one that hooks up to the computer and then use software to do all of the cleaning up of the audio. So that should be hopefully done by this weekend. Oh, I'm definitely being targeted for suppression. I used to average, let's see, my average streams when I first started doing the Charlie Kirk stuff, and even afterwards, the model radio is the Sea Crane Skywave, and the one I'm getting is going to be the AirPlay Discovery Plus, and that's going to be going into SDR software. But yeah, I mean, just basically right now, it seems like, I don't know, it kind of started with the John Bray stuff, talking about the mic theory, but around that time, I would average, you know, between 2,000 and 4,000 people a stream pretty regularly, and then I did that video, a couple of videos with him, and then ever since then, I've just been having a lot of issues trying to, like, YouTube's not pushing my stream out. So, and there's nothing I can do about that. The only thing that can make it go is hitting like, sharing it around, and maybe eventually they'll give in. But, William, this one does not have squelch. So, that is one of the reasons why I'm going a different route. And a lot of the ones that do have squelch don't even have it on all the bands. They only have it on, or they don't have it on shortwave. They just have it on air. So, the setup I'm getting it has all that. And it has noise cancellation and RF gain and everything. So it should be significantly better. All right, let's see. They should be done now.
The policies of the past, and that if that were to be the case, then the United States and Iran could find themselves at war again in another 5 years. The U.S. president saying essentially that what he's looking for is someone who will bring harmony and peace in Iran.
And Mohammed Val is in the Iranian capital. Mohammed, hold on. Kimberly, back to you for a second, and I'll go to Mohammed momentarily. Right now, how would you assess, let me rephrase this. How is he describing his end game for Iran?
Well, the U.S. president has essentially, and this is what makes Americans nervous, is it looks like there is no definitive end game. In other words, the goalpost continues to move. And many are concerned about this because they've had a generation of this already, whether it be in Afghanistan or it looks eerily familiar to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. But what we know is that
with regard to the military operation. What the U.S. president is saying and what some of his Pentagon officials are saying often has been at odds in recent days. There's an important gap because while the Pentagon seems to be talking mostly about operational activities and
So Carolyn Levitt, she is saying they're not concerned about Russia targeting information to Iran.
Kristen.
What you just said on Fox that it doesn't really matter if Russia is giving Iran information about military assets. Why doesn't it matter if U.S. military is put in danger by Russia? And is that what the president believes as well?
What I meant, Kristen, and thank you for giving me a chance to make it very clear, is that it clearly is not making a difference with respect to the military operations in Iran because we are completely decimating them. As I said earlier, we've taken out nearly 30 of their ships. Their Navy has been deemed combat ineffective, 90% reduction in ballistic missile retaliatory strikes against the United States and our Gulf Arab and partners in the region. So, of course, we are achieving the military objectives of this operation, and that is going to continue because the United States military is the best and most lethal fighting force in the world.
So remember this moment because I have a feeling that is going to change later. So if we start losing, then they're going to start blaming Russia. I thought that was pretty interesting. See if there's anything else new really quick while we're already here. 5 IDF soldiers were injured. I guess light injuries. There's not a lot of deaths that I'm seeing from the Israeli soldiers. Obviously, a lot of this is Navy and Air Force. So not a lot of people directly in harm's way for the most part. And I think that's about it. Let's see. Yeah. So her little press conference thing she did is like the latest news coming out. So I think that's why there's not a lot of mainstream media and other channels covering this stuff because there's so much information that's not getting out anymore. It's being suppressed before it even gets out. So it's hard to report on this stuff if you don't have content, right? So that's why I try and curate all the content first and then present it at the beginning. So you actually have that value there. And then I just monitor afterwards for as long as I can.
Been a flurry, essentially, of kinetic activity in the skies as Iran continues to send drones, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. And it seems to be a pattern in that they'll take a strategic target. Some of those are U.S. bases or U.S. assets, but all the Gulf states have also accused them of targeting energy infrastructure and also inadvertently civilian infrastructure. So we're seeing them continuously sending a number of drones and missiles into one specific area, trying to hit them. And of course, this multi-layered defensive Air Force is attempting to thwart that attack before it reaches its target. And as you've said, they've done that very successfully up until now. So, but there has been falling debris, and this is the reason why we have these siren alerts on our phones across the Gulf region, is warning us to get indoors, get away from windows, be vigilant, and don't pay attention to any misinformation. Go to the relevant authorities to find out what's going on and when that security alert has been taken down and the threat eliminated. And that is because of the danger of falling debris. As I said, these attacks are thwarted before they reach their target. So often, you know, as soon as they're intercepted.
Is anyone actually in the... Sorry, I'm interrupting the war stream because there's not really... If anything starts happening with the missiles incoming, then I'll switch over. But I wanted to look at the storm stuff coming up today. Are any of you guys in that area? I'm trying to see if I still have Radar Omega set up. Let's see. All right, yeah, I'll set that up while you guys are watching this, and then I'll come back to it. So give me a second here.
Essentially, the Gulf Cooperation Council met with EU ministers yesterday on Thursday, and they sent out a joint statement, really just showing solidarity, and the Gulf nations saying they will not allow anyone to use the bases in themselves. And that defense is really being put to the test with the amount of missiles being sent through at the moment.
Absolutely. Laura Khan reporting live from the Qatari capital, Doha. Thank you very much. And acknowledging also the pictures that our viewers are seeing right now. The skies over Tel Aviv live. We're watching this carefully because we understand that an Iranian missile attack is incoming. So you may end up seeing something relatively shortly. Again, Israel has a layered defense system, shoots down many, but not all of those missiles and drones. And top right corner of your screen is Beirut that has been struck, especially the southern suburb Dahye, struck multiple times over previous days by the Israeli military. Now, security footage has captured the moment a strike hit near a boys' school in Iran. That attack took place in the northwestern city of Qazvin. At least one student was killed in the strike. Students and teachers can be seen running for safety. New information is emerging also about the Minab school attack that killed at least 168 people. This happened on Saturday, the first day of U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran. Both the U.S. and Israel have acknowledged the strike, and now American media reports suggest that the U.S. military was targeting the area at that time. Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapallo is in Washington, D.C. Manuel, the Pentagon and even the White House now are facing questions about U.S. responsibility in this attack, which has killed more than 160 people, most of them school children. What do we actually know?
Cyril, I think it's important that we begin by saying that we cannot say conclusively that it was the United States military that was responsible for this attack on an elementary school in southern Iran. What we have learned on Friday is that White House officials speaking to lawmakers on Capitol Hill in a behind closed doors briefing reported that in a preliminary military investigation, it appears as though U.S. forces launched the strike that hit that school while targeting a nearby IRGC facility. Now, we did reach out to the Pentagon for a comment earlier in the day. We had a response from U.S. Central Command saying it would be inappropriate to comment given the incident is under investigation. This is consistent with what we've heard from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has been asked about this during Pentagon briefings over the course of the week. He said that he can't comment on that other than the United States does not intentionally target civilians, saying that there is a Pentagon investigation underway. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was also asked about this, gave a similar answer saying the U.S. simply does not target civilians. Now, just to back up a little bit, talk a little bit about what this attack actually entailed. This is an attack that took place on February 28th, the first day of the military campaign by the United States and Israel against Iran. It was a girls' school in the southern city of Minab in southern Iran that left somewhere between 160 and 180 people dead, most of them children. And it's being considered the deadliest civilian casualty event thus far in this conflict. Iran has jointly blamed both the United States and Israel, calling this a war crime. We've heard concerns now voiced by the United Nations humanitarian groups, saying that this could be a violation of international humanitarian law. Of course, at this point, if the United States military does acknowledge responsibility for this strike, there could be a reasonable expectation of international condemnation against the United States and certainly significant blowback here domestically for the Trump administration politically.
Manuel Rapallo in Washington, D.C., thank you very much. We can now go back to Iran. Mohammed Val is in the Iranian capital. Mohammed, we started this hour by reminding our viewers that Donald Trump says there's not going to be any deal. He's not going to make a deal with Iran. What he wants is their unconditional surrender, his words. However, the Iranian president wrote on X a few hours ago, quote, some countries have begun mediation efforts. So do you know if there are any talks going on?
Cyril, no. Apparently, Iranians are not responding favorably to this request because the president in that tweet said we are focused now on the defense of our beloved nation. And he said that those who are trying to initiate these negotiations should talk to the others who initiated this aggression against our people. So that's a very clear message from the Iranians that they're not waiting for this negotiation to resume. They don't have faith in it. They might trust the negotiators' goodwill, but they don't trust the other parties' goodwill in this regard, because they say that on two occasions Americans attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations when there were prospects for a peace deal. That the same talk, the same ideas have been reiterated by others, including the foreign minister yesterday in an interview with an American news outlet. He said that we're not asking for a ceasefire, we're not asking for negotiations because we don't trust the other side. And he repeated those same reasons why Iran is not trusting the Americans and the Israelis. Iran is focused on defense now and on waging this war to the end. And they seem to have a strong message to the Americans and the Israelis that Americans and Israelis should not think that Iran is about to crumble, should not think that Iran is about to run out of weapons and so on. And that's the bet on the American side. They are talking about the destruction of 60% or 70% or 80% of the capabilities of Iran, missile capabilities and so on. But Iranians are saying that that's not the case, that they have the means and the capabilities to continue this war as long as it takes.
Yeah, Mohammed, just letting you know that we are watching the skies over Tel Aviv, over Tehran. A moment ago, it was also over Beirut. And there have been, of course, Israeli and U.S. warplanes over the skies of the Middle East today again. And there have been Iranian missiles really flying across the region, targeting multiple countries, whether it's the Gulf or Israel or U.S. bases across the Gulf. On your end, I understand that there's been very heavy bombardment in the capital, Tehran, and in other locations. Can you brief us to the best of your ability on the military update today?
Yes, throughout the day, Cyril, there have been bombardments across Tehran in particular. And today they revisited the same site that the Israelis started the war with bombarding, and that's the Pastor district, where the presidential palace and the house, the residence of the late supreme leader. The Israelis are saying that they targeted the bunker that was about to be used by the late supreme leader, but the Israelis have struck him and killed him before he went into that bunker. They said that some of the leaders might be meeting there and they are assessing the situation. They talked about 50 aircraft participating in the operation overnight or at dawn this morning, and about 100 bombs used against that bunker. That's a huge operation, but we don't know. We haven't seen anything by way of results or impact being revealed by the Iranians here. They are denying that anybody was killed there. So apparently that's a waste of weapons on the part of the Israelis. But also in other cities, lots of other cities have been bombarded today, including, aside from Tehran, you have Qum, you have Ilam, you have Kermanshah, you have Bandar Abbas and other cities. And particularly the Israelis are focusing on Ilam, close to the Kurdistan, the Iranian Kurdistan region. That's because, as the Iranians say, Israel is trying to weaken the presence of Iranian army there to create conditions for the Kurdistan fighters, the Iranian Kurdistan fighters, or Kurdish fighters rather, to cross the border and wage a war alongside the Americans and the Israelis on the ground. The Iranians are preparing for this. They are cautious about it. They are talking to the Iraqis, both in the north, the Kurdish Iraqi region leaders, and also Baghdad, about the danger of allowing the Kurdish fighters to start this kind of operation inside Iran, talking about reactions, talking about retaliation from Iran, and about disruption of diplomatic ties if this happens. There is also talk about a lot of civilians being killed, 20 people in Shiraz killed today, and 2 medical staff workers also there in Shiraz. 2 people killed in the north, in the northwest, and schools being hit, medical centers being hit. So the toll among civilians is rising by the day, and that's a huge concern for Iranians here, even though the government is talking about preparations for bunkers to be used, and those bunkers are basically the metro stations being prepared to be shelters for people, but that is taking time, and apparently it's not ready yet.
Mohammed Val reporting from the Iranian capital, Tehran. Thank you very much. We're looking at developments across the region live. Meanwhile, Iran's military has warned Iraq's Kurdistan regional government that it will take action against any move to deploy forces along the Iranian border. This is something Mohammed was referencing a second ago. It comes after Donald Trump said if Kurdish forces want to mount an armed offensive against the Iranian government, then he would support that. There has also been a series of attacks on Kurdish targets in the region. The latest attack hit a site belonging to an exiled Iranian Kurdish group based in Iraq. Drones and missiles targeted the site in northern Iraq belonging to the Iranian Kurdistan Democratic Party. Al Jazeera's Asad Beg is in Iraq, and he spoke to the leader of one of the exiled Iranian.
That's actually a pretty interesting point. He said, we've heard again and again, Iran planned to disappear Trump, but not the other dude. Now's the time to call spades. Actually, let me see. I'm curious if they've ever had any openly, because obviously there's attempts on every world leader for the most part. But let's see. Because you have to remember in the 12-Day War, I believe they bombed his house in Israel. Let's see. Yeah, they did a drone attack on his house in 2024 in October, and assassination plot from a citizen that I guess was like a double agent. That was in 2024 as well, and it looks like there's semi-regular, but those were the two big ones. Was during that 12-Day War, so it definitely happens. But the fact that they're trying to take out the president of the U.S. obviously gets more headlines.
Of course, in the operational field, we need weaponry, explosives, and also advanced equipment. As you know, the equipment we have is basic and old. Today's wars are more advanced than before. So if there was something like this, we have this request.
Our panel this hour, Mohammed El-Masri, professor of media studies at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies, and from Washington, D.C., Omar Rahman is a fellow at the Middle East Council on Global Affairs. Since we were just talking about and covering the news about Iranian Kurdish groups, and I think we laid out for our viewers what that is. These are groups, armed groups, that are in Iraq as part of this greater Kurdistan region that could potentially mount a ground offensive in Iran and put further pressure on the regime. Omar, how seriously are you taking this?
I mean, I think it's a serious issue. I mean, you heard from during that interview, these groups are serious. They are armed. They are organized. The Trump administration obviously, doesn't want to put American boots on the ground. That's kind of a last option, and so it's seeking for alternatives. And there are many different ethnic groups in Iran, many points of fracture. I think the Kurds are the most armed and organized, and those ones that are based in Iraq. But they have their own considerations to make. I mean, first of all, there's a long track record of America, either betraying or the Kurds, who end up incurring huge backlashes from states and massacres and such. At the same time, there's been, a long, maybe advancement, you can say, of Kurdish autonomy, not independence in the region. But I mean, if you look at where the KRG is, for example, if you look at things that are happening in Syria in terms of carving out space, obviously the situation in Turkey is a bit differently. But I mean, just to make a last point, there are also it's not just Iran that would have to fight them. There are those other governments in the region where there are significant Kurdish populations. I don't think will look too kindly on this kind of mobilization of force against the government in Iran either, and the potential disintegration of the Iranian government that would really be catastrophic for the region.
But would Kurds even throw their lot in with Americans? Again, Mohammed, bringing you in on this, because Omar mentioned Syria. So if we look at the last 15 years in Syria, at some point the U.S. decided that Kurds in Syria were a good ground fighting force for them to partner with. And at the time it was against ISIL, right? Fighting the ISIL armed groups. And what we just saw in the last few weeks is that they have now essentially washed their hands of the Kurds, who have been pushed out of the territories that they had conquered in that fight. And the Americans have said, well, we don't need you anymore because now our main partner is the central government in Damascus. But so the question I'm asking is, if you are the Kurds in Iraq, thinking of mounting an offensive in Iran. You just look at Syria thinking, well, they were used and then sort of left alone in the wilderness. Would you go and do that and do to some extent America's bidding in Iran?
I'm doubtful. I'm very doubtful because they're relatively few in number. Iran is a completely different scale. I mean, Syria is actually relatively divided. It's a more heterogeneous society. It's much smaller. Iran is 92 million people. The fighting force there, including reservists, is about 1 million. So, I mean, I just don't see a path forward for any kind of serious resistance. Now, is it possible that they could, wreak havoc and cause trouble and things like that? Well, yeah, that's always possible, but I just don't know that they would, put their cards in because it's too risky for them, especially given the way things ended in Syria.
Omar, when you open the history books and you look at the history of U.S. involvement, whether it's Middle East or somewhere else, the history of U.S. wars, is there anything that to you speaks to this moment? Are there lessons to be learned from past U.S. wars to understand what's happening now?
Certainly. I mean, first, I want to just say, I don't want to imply that the Kurds of Iran are going to be able to overrun the government. I don't want to imply that. Although they can play a part, I think, in kind of weakening and fragmenting the country, if they're given enough support from the Americans and the Israelis to wage some kind of like guerrilla warfare. Anyway, that aside, yes, I think there are certainly lessons. I mean, again, this is in a way similar but more destructive to the Iraq War. I mean, we're not seeing the kind of massive invasion of the U.S., but we're seeing, a massive use of force against a government that is aimed at weakening it to the point of collapse, and the significant trouble that poses to the rest of the region. And I think the rest of the region recognizes that. And that's why there was an effort by the Gulf states, for example, to trying to find some diplomatic outcome. Everybody fears, even those that don't love the Islamic Republic, fear the disintegration of the state, the vacuums that can open up, the power vacuum, security vacuum, and all the repercussions of that for the rest of the region. So I think there are serious lessons that this Trump administration, is profoundly ignorant of somehow. The lessons of history that are not that old, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to appreciate or have a historical awareness for what they're doing now.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned the Iraq War as a relevant blueprint for this moment, because I think even most Americans on both sides of the political.
All right, I think this is set up. I'm gonna do a little bit more customization, but this here, this is the weather for today. This is the big area we're looking at that has 2% on the outer, and then obviously we're up to like 10% in the middle, and it looks like it's mostly, I mean, Oklahoma got hit last night, but Missouri into Illinois, I mean, this whole big swath going across Kansas. I think they had 4. It was either 4 or 5 pretty sizable tornadoes last night. But yeah, if you're in these areas, make sure you're keeping your head on a swivel. It looks like it's supposed to get really bad around like 7 o'clock. So right now there's not a lot going on. But I used to have, a long time ago, I had a news YouTube channel, and I would cover this kind of stuff, and kind of started getting into like meteorology and all of that. So whenever we had tornado outbreaks, I would go in here and mess around and do some coverage of that. But you got Max Velocities and those guys who are actual meteorologists for that. But it's really helpful when it's coming our way. I can actually look at this when they're coming, when tornadoes are coming. I can actually look at it and be like, hey, the tornado's on 122nd and whatever street. Like I can give that away. And see exactly where it's going to see if we need to go in the basement or not. But just be ready. That could be coming this evening. And these storms did produce some stuff last night. So I just wanted to show that, make sure everyone's aware.
I think everyone agrees that it's all of the Gulf countries. The European countries are concerned about a possible new, refugee crisis. They're concerned about oil and gas prices. They're concerned about their citizens. There are hundreds of thousands of citizens from European Union countries living in the Gulf. No one wants this war except Israel, and the United States is now doing that which Donald Trump explicitly promised he wouldn't do.
We're 1 week into this war. Mohammed al-Masri, Omar Rahman, thank you very much to both of you. And it's just gone past 1930 GMT. You're watching Al Jazeera's extensive coverage of the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. I'm Cyril Vanier. U.S. President Trump says that there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional.
They're doing their fancy music again. Let me look around here a little bit more, see if there's anything else that's coming out right now while they're doing their DJing over there. I have heard from some people that there's some really good stuff on Telegram. So I may join Telegram just to see if I can get access to some more news and some more uncensored news, hopefully. Yeah, it looks like Hezbollah has spent several months preparing for this with rockets and building up their drone arsenal and everything ahead of this war. So it seems like Iran and Lebanon for sure, Hezbollah in Lebanon, know about this and have been preparing. And like some people said, Iran's been preparing for this war for, their entire existence, basically. And then a lot of people talking about the amount of money it's costing, Blackstone having issues, price of, barrels, oil barrels going up. We're at $90+ More people entering the war, becoming official. And then the Kurdish fighters going in on land. So not a lot of other stuff coming out. I'll probably keep monitoring here for probably another 30 minutes or so and see if anything comes out, see if anything happens, and then we'll go from there.
Forcing Saudi Arabia and Qatar, as we said, to suspend production. Kristen Salumi is at the New York Stock Exchange. Kristen, how are markets responding to all of this?
Yeah, markets are still in the red here. They've been tracking lower all day, sinking as oil prices surge. Escalating conflict in the Middle East, driving concerns about disruption in the global energy markets. The world has been watching these oil prices rise. Here in the United States, we've seen the West Texas crude oil, a benchmark, rise to above $92 a barrel. That's a 13% increase. Today alone, that has increased 36% in the last week. That gives you an idea of how things have been moving here slowly but steadily upward. Why is that? Well, first of all, we've got President Trump saying things like only unconditional surrender will result in a deal to end this war. That could significantly impact the worldwide oil supply. Also, we've got Qatar's energy minister, as you mentioned, indicating that production in the Gulf would have to stop if the conflict does not end. That's obviously a huge concern. And even as the administration attempts to ease worries, saying things like they'll release oil from strategic reserves or take steps to protect tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, that's only having a nominal effect. There's a lot of jitters, a lot of volatility in the market this week. As these rising prices become more tangible for American consumers as they go to fill up their vehicles, and also for businesses that are seeing their expenses rise. So we haven't seen a dramatic plunge, but we've seen a steady plunge of the markets. One bright spot that won't surprise you is the defense sector. We're seeing stocks like Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics increase as the conflict continues. But the Dow Jones Industrial right now is on track to have its worst week in 3 years.
Worst week in 3 years. Kristen Salumi reporting from Wall Street. Thank you very much. The U.S. has given India a waiver to buy Russian oil for 30 days in order to ease the pressure on the world's third largest importer and consumer. On Friday, the Indian government ordered oil refining companies to maximize production of liquefied petroleum gas, but only sell it to domestic customers. The country refines and exports petroleum products ranging from jet fuel to chemicals and plastics. In August last year, India was hit with a 25% tariff by the United States as punishment from the U.S. for buying Russian oil, and that waiver was revoked last month. 1 week on, the conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran is spreading far beyond the region. Chulide Iger takes a look at the countries now involved as tensions continue to escalate.
On the 28th of February, the US and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran. Since then, more than 100 cities have been attacked and at least 1,300 people have been killed, including Iran's supreme leader. Iran was quick to retaliate, launching thousands of strikes towards Israel. One of the deadliest attacks was on the city of Beit Shemesh. But Iran also launched near simultaneous attacks on countries in the region hosting US bases. These are the countries that have been affected so far, and the missile interceptions are still taking place. Some of the attacks have hit US embassies, oil refineries, and even hotels. Then, on the 2nd of March, Hezbollah.
All right, so someone was talking about Iran having a earthquake today. So let me switch screens. So there's this here. And as we know, a lot of people think these earthquakes are possibly nuclear tests, same as in the U.S. But there's Shiraz here, and it's near Yasuj in Iran. So it's confirmed that it did happen. And then I started looking in to see this interactive map. So this has all the information here. Talks about that specific one, has, it's all verified that it happened. And I was trying to look at a waveform. The waveform itself just looks like a regular one. It has the pre-shocks, aftershocks, and all that. At least it seems like it does. But then I asked, are there any military bases in that area where they could do testing? And it says, yes, there are significant Iranian military and Islamic Revolutionary Guard bases near Shiraz, including the 7th Tactical Air Base and a major underground missile facility to the south. These sites, which have been targets of recent airstrikes, house fighter jets, drones, and ballistic missiles. So the question is, did the U.S. and Israeli strikes hit like a big ammunition depot, or did they successfully hit an underground missile city and cause a huge explosion big enough to register as an earthquake? Or could they possibly have testing a nuke, right? Allegedly. So a lot of questions. But we know that this is an earthquake-prone region, so it's not unusual for them to have earthquakes. But very interesting timing.
So let me just bring you up to speed. We understand there were airstrikes targeting the Jurf al-Sukhar area north of Baghdad. Now, that homes the headquarters of the Popular Mobilization Forces as well as other factions, those groups aligned with Iran. So we believe those airstrikes were carried out by the United States, although we can't confirm that at this point in time. At the same time, there were 2 Katyusha rockets fired at the Taji military base north of Baghdad. And again, that location is believed to house US troops. Elsewhere in Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, the US embassy in Baghdad has issued a warning. It said that Iranian allied groups may seek to target hotels frequented by foreigners, and it urged US citizens to leave as soon as possible, and those that were staying should reconsider their lodging arrangements. Elsewhere in Iraqi Kurdistan, there have been attacks against Iranian Kurdish groups here. And we've seen Iran as well as Iraq-based groups that are aligned with Iran attacking bases, headquarters, communications towers. We visited some of those camps today. And just to give you the context for that, there's a coalition, an alliance of 6 Iranian Kurdish groups now. And since the United States has been talking about Kurdish groups possibly mounting ground operations in Iran. Now, we spoke to one of the leaders of that group within that alliance and started off by asking him whether his group was already involved in a ground operation or planning to. Just directly, are your fighters already mounting a ground operation against Iran?
At this moment, no. We are not currently engaged in any offensive operations. We have been planning for a long time, and now that conditions are more favorable, there is a strong probability of action. We have yet to reach a decisive decision, but it is highly likely we will move forward with a ground operation. The Americans have contacted us through various channels, but until now we have not met directly. But they contacted us. Talking if we can cooperate together in the future. Only in that context. There has been no direct communication until now, but through intermediaries, through other Kurdish people. When the time comes and we meet with them, it becomes clear in the operational field. Of course, in the operational field, we need weaponry, explosives, and also advanced equipment. As you know, the equipment we have is basic and old. Today's wars are more advanced than before. So if there was something like this, we have this request.
So that is something we're watching. Iranian Kurdish groups currently hiding in Iraq. They're weighing mounting a ground offensive in northwestern Iran. Now, Israeli forces have targeted UN peacekeepers stationed in Lebanon. Several personnel from Ghana were injured when their position in the town of Kuza came under attack. UNIFIL is investigating whether the attack was deliberate. This comes after an incident late last year when the UN detachment also came under Israeli artillery fire. Israel has issued forced displacement orders for southern Beirut, which is home to hundreds of thousands of people. Israel has been striking the area for several days now. The UN's refugee agency has declared the situation in the Middle East a major humanitarian emergency.
At the moment, with these blanket, massive displacement orders, we are talking here about hundreds and thousands of people. Our colleagues on the ground hear every day about the anguish that people face, about not knowing where to go, not knowing how long it will take. Obviously, this raises serious concern under international humanitarian law, and in particular when it comes to issues around forced transfer.
And many of the people who have become internally displaced have ended up on the streets of central Beirut, sleeping in their cars or even out in the open. Bernard Smith reports from the Lebanese capital.
Hussein al-Shukif shows us what happened to his car as they fled Israeli shelling on their border village in southern Lebanon, with shrapnel raining down. With an aunt Amina, his son Ali and wife Hoda, the family have spent the last 3 days travelling north, sleeping in their 2 cars that are packed with everything they could carry.
I went to get my car and there was an airstrike. We barely made it out. We stayed on the road for more than 4 hours, moving a little at a time. In the end, we slowly kept going, and then an airstrike happened right in front of us. Thank God it didn't hit us. I had just recovered from the shock when another strike happened behind us.
Like tens of thousands of others here, they have nowhere to go and no money to pay for a hotel or apartment. The government has handed over this stadium in Beirut to a charity that hopes to accommodate 5,000 people. Volunteers are learning how to put up the hundreds of tents that will shelter the displaced.
The main challenge now is preparing this area quickly so people can come in. It is not acceptable for people to remain on the streets for 4 days. Right now the site isn't ready. The toilets aren't working. There is no water supply, no electricity, no tents, and nothing on the ground to protect people from the cold and rain.
It's going to be another 48 hours before this place is in an adequate condition to accept anyone. Until then, people sleep where they can, Beirut's Corniche has become a campsite.
Someone was asking a very good question on X. They're like, where is J.D. Vance during all this? You haven't heard a single word this entire time since the war started. Vice President not speaking out in a week of war. Kind of strange.
Hussein's home was flattened by Israeli shelling this week for a second time. He just partly rebuilt it after the last war in November 2024. Only Israel will decide when we go home, he says. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Beirut.
And Zaina Hoda reports now from the southern Lebanese city of Tyre on how people are trying to get out.
We're making our way to the southern city of Tyre. In the early hours of Thursday morning, the Israeli army issued yet another warning for people to leave areas south of the Litani River. As you can see, as we drive through the streets, traffic is very thin, shops are closed. People are worried, especially since there's no end in sight to this latest confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah. Human rights groups have criticized the Israeli army's evacuation order, saying forcing an entire population to leave their homes violates the rules of war. South of the Litani River to the border, this is 8% of Lebanese territory, and hundreds of thousands of people live in this area. The city has already come under attack. Israeli airstrikes targeting what it calls Hezbollah's military infrastructure. We are in the center of the city of Tyre. It was also repeatedly targeted during the last confrontation in late 2024. Attacks like this cause further displacement, destruction. Many people have still not recovered from the last conflict. Many homes, many buildings still lay in ruins. The country is cash-strapped. The government has not been able to help the people. People are poor. Israeli strikes also targeted electricity generators in the city. People here are telling us this is part of a strategy to make the city unlivable and to force people to leave. The Israeli military also targeted Qard al-Hassan branches. This is a financial institution affiliated with Hezbollah. The Israeli military really has been targeting anyone and anything related to Hezbollah. But as you can see, widespread destruction. This used to be a commercial district. So much damage. It is obvious that many have left this southern city. There are still those who have chosen to stay. The question is, for how long? Zaina Hoda, Al Jazeera, Tyre, southern Lebanon.
As the conflict in the Middle East escalates, European unity is under strain. Some EU countries are backing the US and Israel's mission, while others are openly against it. European governments are struggling to find common ground and balance support for their allies with public fears of being dragged into another war. Natasha Butler has more from Paris.
It was in the Oval Office on Wednesday that divisions in the European Union over the war in Iran were thrown into sharp relief. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, praised by the US President for supporting Washington's mission, remained notably silent while Donald Trump lashed out at a fellow EU country, Spain, because Madrid refuses to allow the US military to use its bases.
But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain.
While Merz says Berlin supports the US and Israel's goals, Spain's Prime Minister took the opposite stance.
In short, the Spanish government's position can be summed up in 3 words: no to war.
Divisions over the conflict are also apparent at the top, with mixed messages from EU leaders in Brussels.
And this means a credible transition for Iran.
While the head of the EU Commission has appeared to call for regime change, the bloc's foreign policy chief is cautious.
The diplomatic track, the European Union and Gulf foreign ministers met today to discuss what we can do together to break the cycle of escalation.
I asked for official numbers, total fatalities on all sides. Total reported fatalities across all sides right now is about 1,500, and the vast majority are in Iran. Iran has 1,230 to 1,300 killed, including civilians and military. Iranian Red Crescent Tasnim News said Israel has at least 11 killed. It doesn't say if that's military or citizens. The U.S. has 6 official, and that was mostly from the base in the Gulf. Lebanon 72 to 77, and Gulf states it looks like approximately 9 total between UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. There are over 6,000 injured in Iran, hundreds in Israel, dozens with the U.S., and they're saying likely several thousand across all the different countries.
That a war that most Europeans don't want is coming increasingly close to home. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
The protesters in Indonesia's capital have rallied against the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. They also denounced their government's membership of President Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Opponents are calling for Indonesia to leave the body and scrap plans to send its troops to Gaza as part of a U.S.-backed stabilization force. From Jakarta, here's Barnaby Lowe.
There have been near daily protests here in Jakarta since the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran broke out. The anger has been directed mostly at Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto for forging close ties with U.S. President Donald Trump and for joining the U.S.-led Board of Peace, which is tasked to oversee the Gaza peace plan. These protesters have been against it since before the war in the Middle East began, but they say the unprovoked attack by the U.S. and Israel on Iran bolsters their criticism.
We urge imperialist America to stop all acts of aggressive warfare, including efforts to pit one country against another in order to provoke conflict.
The Indonesian government has called for an end to violence by both parties and has offered to mediate, but Prabowo has ruled out exiting the Board of Peace for now, saying that that decision was carefully deliberated with the thinking that it would be easier and more effective to advocate for Palestinian independence from within. But these protesters are here now outside the parliament asking lawmakers to urge Prabowo to leave the Board of Peace and to cancel the deployment of Indonesian troops to Gaza.
We have experienced so many senseless deaths in West Asia, and Indonesia does not need to lose its soldiers there.
As you can see here, Indonesians feel very strongly about supporting Palestinian rights and statehood. And officially, the government's long-standing foreign policy has also been that. And so protesters here say they're only asking the government to stand by Palestinians. And that includes, they say, opposing any unilateral action, military action by the U.S. and Israel. Barnaby Lowe, Al Jazeera.
Okay, that's getting obnoxious. I gotta. Okay, there we go. And they're on music. So this dashboard here is actually pretty interesting. I just want to show this really quick. So right now what I have so far is flight radar, which is tracking flights, obviously. And I especially have been really interested in the drones. That's been so obviously I've been looking at the planes and everything, and the cargo and the refuelers and the Poseidon planes and all that, but it's these drones that have been catching my attention a lot. They're being used more and more in warfare and recon and all that kind of stuff, but I've been seeing them all over the place, and I don't hear anyone else talking about them. But this one is heading down towards, I don't know if you remember a couple of days ago, but there was one that was down here in Egypt, and they kept circling the same area over and over again, and just kind of, that one looks like it's heading down towards the same area right now. And then there was possibly a sub right here. We had a plane that hunts submarines sitting over that spot. Let me turn off my timer here. And there we go. And then there's one here as well. This is the one off the coast of Cyprus. It's probably looking for, might be looking for something there, or it might just be keeping an eye out for incoming rockets or missiles. I don't know if rockets can go that far. I'd have to look that up. But these drones are fascinating to me, especially these modern ones. And then I have the Strait of Hormuz. This is just showing overall traffic. It gets very specific. Like you can get down to individual ships and their country of origin and what their name is and all that. But this one is more just to show congestion. This looks much less congested than it did a few days ago. It looks like there is actually some movement, but the original saying that they're closing it, now they're saying they're not officially closing it, but there have been some tankers hit and there's been a tugboat hit, so not good. And then of course we have our pizza index. Tells us how busy the government buildings are. They're too busy to leave and go get food, so they order pizza. And that's kind of the idea behind this. There's also another piece that U.S. death toll, Benita is still just 6 officially. But this one also has, this is pretty interesting. So everyone knows about the pizza index, or most people do. The higher these numbers, the higher the spikes, the more of a chance that something's going to happen. And they have this meter that goes back and forth. Obviously, we're at war, so it says it happened. But they also, I didn't know about this until a couple of days ago. They have this gay bar report. Apparently, there's some tie to how busy the gay bars are and what's going on with the Pentagon and government workers. I thought that was really interesting. So they're inverse. So the higher the pizza and the lower the gay bar, then the more of a chance of something happening. Missile launches detected heading towards Israel. So looking like Jerusalem area and let's see, Jerusalem and Western Israel. Are those sirens too loud? Or are they a good level? Swamp Lover, this is a report that goes along with the pizza index. So if the pizza index is high, there's more of a chance that something's going on because the government's too busy, so they order pizza. And this is also another thing that this website does. It's the gay bar report. And apparently the lower the business is at these gay bars, the more of a chance there's something going on in the government. So they just put them both in here. It's kind of entertaining. Someone says the sirens are very loud. Okay, I can turn those down a little bit there. I'll try there. Okay. Let me know if the next ones are better. And right now, it just says they're detected, so they're not incoming yet. Let me know if that level's better. Then we have rocket alerts as well. There's pretty much always rockets. There's an ongoing rocket alert right now in these areas. And usually fired from Lebanon. And usually northern Israel. But it's all these areas right now. Pretty widespread. Radiation map. Looks pretty usual. We have a couple of spikes here and there, but nothing crazy. This is the NASA fire map. So it detects any, I guess maybe by heat signatures. So any areas where you see all this red, even just like each individual dot is an individual heat signature from a fire. So right now, whoa, that's crazy. What's the US look like? Yeah, so there's always fires around us. We just only hear about the big ones. But I think in this case, it might serve, I'm not 100% sure, but it might serve to look at fires that are burning from strikes in Iran and around the Middle East. So you can see these very distinct spots. So even when people are saying there's nothing, someone said, I'm not saying the sirens are loud, but all my neighbors just fled. Oh, man. Well, unlike some specific streamers and stuff, you know, I want to make sure you guys have a good experience. So if something's too loud or sounds bad or whatever it may be, I want to fix it and adjust it. So, but yeah, so that's that. More sirens, more cowbell. This one, to me, is very interesting. I'm still learning what all this can do. But let's say, for example, if you have an explosion, so like right here, so see this line coming in here? I don't know if you can see that, but there's that line coming towards here. Then there's a question mark. So there's a launch that was detected, and this website is like real time trying to track it and see where it might land. And then these previous ones, this will tell you about previous launches and where it came from. So these are supposed to be all the different strikes. Does that make sense? So basically, the missiles were fired from this direction, and then these are all the different hits and warning areas and stuff that have happened. So this is the projected area that they're going towards right now. So this site, accuracy-wise, I'm not 100% sure. This is a new site that I've just found. So I'll have to dig in a little bit, but it's very cool to kind of like, it's almost like a real-time war dashboard. So if it's accurate, then I'll keep using it, keep messing with it. And then we have this map, and this is more to go over when there's not live monitoring going on. It'll show you individual things that have happened. So for example, like we can go in here, go to Jerusalem, and if we click it, we can click on X posts and stuff that are relevant to that. So this missile right here coming in and the missile being intercepted has the geolocation confirmed. So they took it out, and this is all 100% validated and that kind of stuff. So that's what this site does. There's a couple other sites that do it as well that have a little bit more data, but it's kind of cool to be able to see that because there's so many BS posts and AI and everything else. It's nice to have some confirmation and some actual like recon behind the scenes to make sure this stuff is legit. And then just because of that Iran earthquake, I put on the earthquake monitoring as well. So if this is happening, you know, multiple times in the same area throughout this war, then maybe we can maybe assume that there might be some nuke testing or some missile testing or something going on. So that is that. Let's see. Looks like we have some new memberships coming in. Draw Latina gifted 10 TriggerSmart memberships. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys show her some love. I see you already are. Some of you guys are thanking her for the memberships. Let's see. Yeah, Ian software is pretty slick. There's a lot of Charlie Kirk software and dashboards and stuff coming out now. And then also for E, obviously the E files, big E. Okay, so for anyone that wants the sirens, if you want to see the real updates and that kind of stuff, or real-time updates, I should say, there is a... I'll put this in chat. So that's the name of the app. It's Zofar, Tzofar, and you can download that on, you know, iOS, Android, whatever. I would say, you know, download at your own discretion, because they are known to track people and hack things. So, developers in general, not just specifically them. But, someone says that wasn't an earthquake submarine blast. What are you talking about? Alright, so let me see here. I'll check and see if there's any updates. Like I said, I don't really see much going on. There's not even anything. The missiles might be incoming. It says this previous launch that just happened was one single missile, and it got intercepted. I don't know why they would just fire one missile. Obviously, in that case, the interceptor is almost always going to get it because they can fire 1,000 interceptors at one missile. But so that one that we just heard the alarm for has already been intercepted. There's still rockets from Lebanon and drones, but that missile is gone. This is kind of a better picture when it comes to how these maps look. So this is that Zofar app that I just sent out. So if you want to monitor this live even like during these streams with me or something, then you can download the app and it'll give you the live updates when I hear them. And then you also can see the locations that are theoretically in the path. So kind of cool. And that is all there is for updates right now. So I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, I heard about the laser defense system. We reported on that last night. It's pretty slick, and it's significantly cheaper. So that makes a big difference. But I went through all the supers. Oh, I didn't. We have one more set of gifted memberships. Thank you, Dale Stark. Much appreciated. Make sure you guys show some love. It's always nice to get those memberships gifted to you. I've had that happen to me a few times on people's different streams. But based on no new information coming out right now, I am going to call it there. And I may come back on later this evening. So what I'll probably do is gather some more information. And I might do a second stream later tonight. But I might also cover some of the other conflicts and stuff going on, not just Iran. But I appreciate everyone being here. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you are subscribed, you may want to check again, because a lot of people are still getting unsubscribed by the platform. So make sure that you are subscribed and that you also have the bell turned on, because a lot of you are telling me that you're not getting alerted when the stream comes on, and that's probably why. But yeah, I appreciate you all being here. Thanks again to the mods. Kimberly's been awesome. So I will see you on the next one, and possibly today. So have a good rest of your day. And if you're in the storm area where the tornadoes are going to happen and stuff tonight, make sure you are getting prepared. But stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.